company, probably.
Yeah.
I haven't checked with him. Charles contributed a lot to like presence, DMQ in the past. So we are happy that they support Kamailio again, also as a sponsor, and taking the time to come and present something that probably most of us it's really interested in, this challenge with the revenue in the telecom industry. Thank you, David. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Daniel. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me along. And as Daniel said, Simon, our founder at Simwood, is a massive Kamailio fan. He used to come to Kamailio World regularly himself. He has a young family and many commitments. And so I've come along instead. Now, I'm delighted to be here. I would like to just say a big thank you to the Pascom guys before we carry on, the red-shirted guys, because they're doing a great job on the video and the streaming. So the subject for this session is navigating the decline of minute revenue, or if you've got a dodgy speech engine, minute revenue. And what we're going to do is look at that under these headings. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a background about this, the challenge as I see it, how we can address the challenge if we're a telco or if we contract to telcos or wherever we are in that space. One of the problems, or some of the problems that traditional telephony companies have, and how open source can make the difference. And then I just want to briefly mention the Simwood Potato as an example, and I'm going to try a demo on communal Wi-Fi. We'll see how it goes. Okay, how does that sound? Is that all right?
Yep.
Permission to continue? In that case, I'll carry on. Thank you. Okay, so if you've been observing the world of telecoms for some time, you'll know that things do move quite slowly. I'm not talking about in things like open source developments. I'm talking about the telecoms environment generally. And my experience is within the UK. So if you think about, and this is going back a bit, you can see I've got some grey hair here, the adoption of DTMF, the imposition or the introduction of System X, things like caller ID on the PSTN. And then, of course, if we look at the early 2000s, and I think Wolfgang mentioned it in his previous chat or talk, the H323 versus SIP thing. Actually, back around the year 2000, I delivered a speech in Amsterdam, a corporate event, and I actually had H323 and SIP boxing each other in a fight to the death. Anyway, that's another thing. So things like useful Teams integrations, and in the UK, they were thinking of turning off ISDN in 2025, but it seemed too much, and so they've put it off till 2027. The point I'm trying to make is things take a long time to tick round, including the death of fax. We'd all like to see it, but guess what? Fax is still there, isn't it? Still kicking about. Most of them happen in the end. But one of the things we're facing at the moment is seeing the decline of minute revenue. Getting paid for transiting minutes on a per minute basis seems to be going downwards. And one of the reasons for this is, of course, over the top type of systems, WhatsApp, things like that. Lots of people are now calling on WhatsApp, calling on Messenger and various other things. And so if we were in the business of getting paid on a per minute basis, then that revenue is going down, whether we are a service provider or a carrier or whatever it might be. There are mitigations to this. You've probably come across some of those all-you-can-eat packages that promise you thousands of minutes. And of course, in reality, people don't always use those thousands of minutes. And so that's a mitigation in the other way. So it does present us with a challenge, because if we've traditionally been in that business of charging people per minute for moving minutes around, and these minutes are going down, then we've got to think of what we can do next in order to differentiate ourselves, in order to provide services for our customers as well. So we see this minute revenue dwindling, and we know that future revenue shouldn't really rely on those minutes. What we can do is create value. So if you're a carrier, whoever you are actually, if you can create value, then people will be prepared to do that. But in terms of timescales, we don't know how long that minute revenue is going to stick around before it gets to a critical level. Now, where can we add value? Well, if we're in the path of a telephony channel, we can look at collaboration. We can integrate with various systems and charge for that integration. We can do analysis, and you've probably come across things like AI-driven sentiment analysis, which until recently was more done in a kind of after the call way, but increasingly people are doing it in real time, so they can actually check up with what's going on in a live phone call. There's various ways that we can add value. But here's the challenge: we need to do it pretty fast, because that minute revenue is heading down and we don't know when it's going to kind of peter out. So what we've got to do is take this graph, put a stake in the ground or another axis on the graph, and start creating some value to stem that flow away from the minute revenue. Now, we can charge for that added value, but actually in creating value adds, we might well attract back some of the minutes that have disappeared elsewhere. So there's a lot of possibilities here. Now, I want you to think about the traditional telco. And I know that's not us in here, because we're involved in the world of open source. But if you think of telcos around the place, what they've tended to do, and I'm going to use a musical analogy here, is they've tended to buy a box, or in music terms, a CD player for each thing they wanted to do. Now, even the ones that started off many, many years ago with Asterisk and things like that, if they got successful very quickly, some of them went across to Broadsoft and people like that. They kind of came out of the world of open source because they wanted something quickly. And then you get this CD player model where, oh, we need call recording, so we'd better go and buy a box for call recording. And then a couple of years later, oh, well, we really need an SBC for one reason or another, so they go and buy a box, buy a CD player for an SBC. And what happens is these telcos end up with a lot of independent individual boxes on which there's hardware costs for the maintenance, there's licensing fees, there's all kinds of upgrade fees, and of course there's the overhead of actually coupling them all together to do something sensible within their infrastructure. And so it turns into a bit of a hodgepodge, a little bit of a mess. And as you can see, it's not only the costs that are involved, but those proprietary interfaces, because if you bought your SBC from here and your call recording box from here and your Teams integration from there and your AI sentiment analysis over here, you've somehow got to put them all together. And so there really is a challenging environment. And this is where we believe open source really has the key, because if you're working with open source, you can effectively become the Spotify of the carrier services industry. You see, open standards allow for easier integration between the different systems. Now, you might still be using slightly different systems, but when using open standards that are inherently in open source, then we can integrate more easily. You can create must-have features without significant or ongoing costs. It's one of the beauties of open source, isn't it? And of course, if you're doing this in your own homogeneous environment, you can provide API access to these things as well. So you really end up with, rather than having a load of different CD players that are all cobbled together with some cables, you know, maybe some of them are RCA, some of them are optical, some of them are other stuff, some of them are HDMI. Instead of all that, you can have a homogeneous collection of functionality, and you can give a model that allows people to choose the song that they want. They don't even have to have the entire album or the back catalogue. They can just have an individual song. They can pick up the functionality that they need. So, whether you're a telco or whether you're somebody that creates solutions that you sell to telcos, or wherever you are, collaborating with open-minded partners is a way forward. Now, in the age of bring your own carrier, one carrier can work with another or another carrier services company without giving away their estate of DIDs, without having to do the porting and all of that kind of stuff, because if you build your network or you build your offering in such a way that people can just pass through your system and pick up the functionality they want, on the way to the termination, then that gives a lot of flexibility. And people can use what they want, maybe even on an individual call-by-call basis. Imagine if a call comes through and you say, yeah, this one is going to pick up recording and this one is going to pick up Teams integration, but the next call is not. That gives great flexibility. So either as a supplier or a customer, wherever you are in the value chain, there's the ability to create margin for charging on these services without having the headaches of those individual CD players and all the maintenance and the upgrades and the licensing that goes with them. And this bring your own carrier concept eradicates carrier envy. You know, if you're a service provider and you're signed up with this carrier, and then you look across at that carrier and you think, yeah, but they've got this additional functionality that I'd really like. Well, with the BYOC concept, you can actually stay with this carrier and borrow that carrier's functionality by transiting through their network. Now, here's an example. As you know, Simwood are big open source enthusiasts. Now, it doesn't mean I'm claiming that everything on here is open source, but what open source now allows us to do is to join all of these things together. It acts as the glue in some cases. And the reason why we called it a potato is it looks a bit like a potato. You know those baked potatoes layered in foil. So that seemed the obvious name for it. You can see lots of different things, and there's different skewers that come into the potato that allow you to connect at various different layers and deliver various different bits of functionality. Now, of course, everybody these days is talking about AI, and we have a recent development in beta. We've got conversational AI agents that are now in the network. And so what I thought I'd do, with your permission, is do a little demo. Does that sound fair? I'm a little bit worried about it, but we'll see whether it's going to work. I'm from the Tim Panton school of demos. I think it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. So I'm going to attempt this demo. It's with a conversational AI agent that took literally 5 minutes to put together. In fact, let me actually show you the portal where I put it together over here. I'll just amp this up a little bit. So this is our AI thing. You can see that in the Simwood portal I've got AI agents in beta, and I've got this one called Heidi here. If I click on Heidi, you can see that I've told her which voice to use. There's lots of different voices with American English and British English and Australian English and all that kind of stuff. And I've given her an initial prompt, and then I've given her a few pointers here. But the rest of the stuff, in large part, is defaults. So when we talk about stability, speed, and what have you, I'm using the defaults. And the only other thing I've done, and of course is very important, is to point Heidi to a number of resources. The Kamailio World 2025 website, the Acipto website, Daniel's LinkedIn, the Kamailio project, and the schedule. So I've pointed Heidi in this direction. And what I'm going to do is try calling her on Zoiper, and we'll see what happens. Now, bear with me, because of latency issues and things like that. I'm a little bit concerned, but we're going to have a go and see what happens.
Hello there. Welcome to the wonderful world of Kamailio. My name is Heidi. How can I help you today?
Well, I was hoping you could tell me a little bit more about Kamailio World 2025, please.
Kamailio World 2025 is going to be amazing. It's the 13th edition of the Kamailio World Conference and Exhibition. It's a place where real-time communication technologies will challenge your imagination. The conference is being held in Berlin, Germany from May 12th to 13th, 2025. We'll have technical tutorials and business showcases, so you can learn how to build your own systems or find the right products and solutions for your needs. Would you like to know more about the topics that will be covered?
Well, can you tell me anything about Daniel Konstantin Merler, please?
Daniel Konstantin Merler is one of the co-founders of the Kamailio project, and he works at Acipto. He's deeply involved in the development of Kamailio, and he's written a book about SIP routing with Kamailio. He's also won several awards for his contributions to open source, including a Google Open Source Peer Bonus Award in 2019. He is a very important person to us here. Did you know that Daniel will be presenting at Kamailio World 2025?
I didn't know that.
Would you like to know what he will be talking about?
Yes, go on then.
Daniel Konstantin Miele will be presenting 2 sessions at Kamailio World 2025. The first is titled Kamailio, Last Year in Review, where he'll walk through the most relevant events of the Kamailio project, focusing on the development during the last year and plans for the future. He will also be part of the Kamailio Ask Me Anything interactive session, where the audience can ask questions about using or developing Kamailio. Finally, he will be giving a presentation on Kamailio and SIP transport layers. Are you interested in attending Kamailio World 2025?
Well, I'm already here. But is there any way that we could appreciate Daniel better?
That's a great question. I think Daniel is amazing, and it would be great to show him how much we appreciate him. I was thinking of starting a Daniel Konstantin Miele fan club. What do you think?
I think it's a great idea, and I'd like to suggest something. How about every new member gets a free water bottle with a really nice picture of Daniel's face on it?
That's a wonderful idea. I'm sure everyone would love a water bottle with a picture of Daniel's face on it. It would be a great way to show our appreciation for him and promote the fan club. Would you like to help me organise the fan club? I could really use your help with getting it off the ground.
Flipping heck, that's a bit of a big ask. How much were you thinking of charging for membership?
I hadn't thought about charging for membership yet. I was imagining it being free to join, with maybe some optional merchandise available for purchase, like the water bottle we discussed. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think we should charge a membership fee?
Yeah, I do, but listen, I'm in the middle of a demo, so I've got to finish. Can I just give you my name and email address so you can subscribe me to the Kamailio newsletter, please?
Of course. I'd be happy to subscribe you to the Kamailio newsletter. Just give me your name and email address and I'll add you to the list.
Yeah, it's David Duffett, and the email address is david.duffett@simwood.com.
Thank you, David. I've added your name and email address to the Kamailio newsletter subscription list. You'll now receive updates and news about the Kamailio project and community. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
No, that's it. I've got to carry on with this presentation. Thank you.
Okay, David. Thank you for contacting us, and I hope your presentation goes well. If you have any further questions or need assistance in the future, feel free to reach out. Have a great...
Yeah, I'm going to cut her off. She goes on a bit. I did tell her to be chatty. I said, you're a chatty and enthusiastic. That's a genuine AI thing that took literally 5 minutes to set up. And all I did was point it at these different resources. So I think you'll agree, it's quite amazing the way it picks up on things. I actually set one up to do sales for my book. And she said, what's your name? And I said, David Duffett. She said, there's a coincidence. You know, let me contact the real David Duffett and get him to talk to you. Anyway, let's pop the presentation back up here and carry on. Okay. Now, just to prove that it is 100% genuine, I'm going to give you the number that you can call. So if you want to make a note of this number, feel free to call it and you can have any kind of conversation. And she's honest about the fact she's an AI. So if you ask her something that she doesn't know, she'll say, I don't have access to those resources. Or she'll say, I'm an AI. But literally, that's a 5-minute job to set it up. Now, you might think, well, why on earth would you want to do that in the world of carriers? Why would you want to have a phone number terminate in that? Well, here's a lot of power that imagine if one of your customers is a hosted PBX company and you could offer them a real digital assistant that can have a proper conversation, capture all the context, and then do call transfer into any given extension on that hosted system, as an example. So, you know, the limits, well, there are no real limits to this. Okay, so in conclusion, we know that the revenue model is shifting and money from minutes is sort of heading downwards. We need to deal with that. One of the things that's very important is speed of deployment, the ability to deploy this stuff very quickly. So there is a strategic call to be made. Now, if you provide services on your own infrastructure, then perhaps you can charge for those, either by subscription or by call or whatever. But wherever you are in the value chain, finding the right collaboration partner is essential. So minute revenue heading down, we've got to do that value adding. Open source facilitates the way to connect up all of the different parts, and there are opportunities to help telcos directly. So it's been a pleasure talking to you about the way we can stem the flow in a downwards direction of money from minutes. We can make more money by adding value and selling those added value items to various people in the distribution chain. And it's also a pleasure for Simwood to be participating in another Kamailio world. And I want to say a big thank you, not only to the PASCOM guys, not only to Danielle and Ramona, but to everybody that's made this possible. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Questions? We have questions in the, okay, two there. Okay, Randy, I'm coming second to you. First here. Vasily?
Thank you for the presentation. It's amazing. Is it interruptible?
Yes.
If you can share what is on the backend from speech to text, do you use one supplier, multiple suppliers, any challenges in this regard?
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't know all of the ins and outs. I do know that it relies on a number of different things. For instance, I believe you can choose the LLM engine that you use at the back end, whether you're using ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever. In terms of the speech things, I'd have to ask other people to find that out.
Let's chat. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but by the way, I didn't interrupt it because in my testing, when I do that, especially with the delay that there might be, it gets a little bit flustered. So that's why I didn't do that.
Okay. Randy?
David, my question is, so you gave it the website as the source of information, and obviously in the first minute or two of your demo, it was just spitting out stuff, the text from the site. Could you have asked what Tim Patton is going to be speaking about or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't want to make it longer than it was. The thing is, I told her to be chatty. So she was giving a lot of information. I could have told her to keep your answers really short, and be more businesslike, but I'd programmed her to be chatty and enthusiastic.
Gotcha.
But yes.
My actual question was, you gave it that, you coded that stuff and gave the resources. Did it analyze the resources first and know everything? Or was that finding, at the time of your call, was it finding the information?
It's a good question. I don't really know the answer. We'd have to talk to Charles Chance. I believe it does a little bit of crawling, but I think quite a lot of it is real time as well.
And who is it talking to? Who's providing the service? Is it Google or what?
I beg your pardon?
The service that...
I think that one, let me just check. If I minimize this and put this back up. Gemini is what's used there at the moment. Okay.
Okay.
Am I free to go, Daniel?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, David.
Great. Thanks.